Good morning, good
Good
evening, good
morning.
afternoon. Depending on the place of the world you are sitting today, welcome to a new episode of A Coffee with Kavanah. Well, you can see, you can see the homes. I flew to the Netherlands because I want to talk with a nice person. There are people that dedicate their lives to healing once you can see, but others who work to heal the one's history left behind. And my guest, Dirk-Pieter Mellema, does both. So welcome to the show, and thank you very much of staying with us in a coffee with Kavanah. How are you today?
Fine. Yeah. Thank you for having me. It's really nice to speak to you in your great show. And yeah, really nice to talk to you. I'm looking forward to all things we can discuss with each other. Yeah.
Sure. For my friends, Dick Peter is a psychologist, and he has spent about 3 decades working with young people facing trauma, addiction, while at the same time, and this is the nice thing, dedicating his nights and weekends to defending historical truth and building bridges between the Jewish community and Christians. And back in 2021, Peter launched a Jewish and Christian history of Israel. And it's a website born from two deep convictions. First, that truth matters, and these are right. And the other one, understanding the past is a form, of healing, of a bridge. So today, we need to start about this one. And how do you reach this personal trauma and collective memory? And especially, how did this experience influence your way of seeing history, especially Jewish history?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I was raised in a Christian family, and my parents were always taught me to support each other and helping others. And maybe in that way, I started working in the field of psychology with young people with all kind of complex problems. But on the other hand, I was also very much interested in history, um, and I did voluntary work in Scotland and in Cusco in Peru, close to
Oh,
Chile, and I was amazed by the Andean communities there. But the reason why I chose Peru was also because I was very much interested in the ancient history of the Andean civilizations. So my historic interest was already very strong. And yeah, one of my best friends is Jewish, and I know some people with Jewish backgrounds. And in after I was interested in ancient cultures, so the Peruvian cultures, the Andean civilizations. I was also interested in Egypt, the Middle East, Iran, Iraq, the Mesopotamian history. So my interest was also very wide. But because I also got involved with a very good Jewish friend, one of my best friends, and we got to talk much more about the history of the Holy Land of Israel. And it was before this war, but even then there was also a great discourse about what's the real history of that region. Some people claim the history is really different. And when I was interested, I started to learn more, read more, and also my father passed away 12 years ago already, and my mother always had the wish to travel to Israel, but my father never wanted to fly. So when my father died, my sister and I said, well, we should take her to the Holy Land. She must visit it. And so we did in 2016 and again in 2019. And we met some very nice people there that visited the country in all different places, also Jordan. And it was really amazing. And one of the pastors who arranged this tour had also a Jewish background. He was also interested in both parts. He even wrote a book about his family who disappeared in the Holocaust. So my interest started to grow more and more and more, and I was already thinking that people should support the small communities around the world. So I was aware of the difficult situation of all Jewish people in the Middle East, but also the Armenians or the Yazidis or the Druze or the Copts in Egypt. So I thought we must support them, and also Ukraine, a war. I always wanted to support the people who are under attack or in danger. So the Jews especially are in danger. And in the past years, it has been growing even more. And also anti-Semitism is very much rising. And even anti-Semitic violence is becoming a new phenomenon, which is on the streets everywhere. It's really horrible. So, yeah, from there, I started to study also history, because people use history against Israel. And they do it by fake news, fake information, or a total lack of history. And it was also a personal journey for me. So I wanted to speak out for the Jews and Jewish community in Israel. But when I was wanting to do that, I was also questioning myself. If I want to do it, I must do it in a right way. I must not do the same as what many people do, throw a lot of fake news accusations, and you can do it on both sides. So I have to be aware of that. So it started as a personal journey. Yeah.
And do you think understanding the past, I'm taking your words, can help heal present wounds, and both for individuals and for the whole group around the world?
I think so. Well, when I started to look at history of Israel, I also encountered so much discrimination, so much hatred, so much pogroms, massacres, genocides. So, and it goes back a long way. So when I started to reading more and more, I saw that even anti-Semitism was already starting when the Greeks occupied the land of Israel. And even some Egyptian writings were anti-Semitic. So it goes back nearly 2,500 years. And it's important to realize that, because otherwise you'd say, well, it's only some periods, so stop complaining, there were good times, there were bad times. Well, anti-Semitism is a process which is so long that it should be taken very seriously. I think also that I also encountered the hostility between the Christians towards the Jews. And I was even more shocked to read it, because I went to church when I was young, and I didn't hear any negativity about the Jews, and my parents were also very positive. So it's really, hard to see the Crusaders kill so many Muslims and Jews when they conquered the Holy Land for their good cause, but they lost actually the meaning of the Old Testament in such a dramatic way that they killed so many people, which goes directly against their own belief, I guess. So it's shocking.
Yeah, it is shocking. And, in what ways do you see your work as a psychologist and your historical work as part of the same mission? Because you're joining your professional side of what you're doing in favor of the Jewish community, and also, reading a lot about history. How do you, bond all of this together?
Well, one thing is, if people think completely different than how you think yourself, I can, from a psychologist's view, it's easy to understand how people develop very differently, and also build their own way of thinking, what they learned from their parents, from their community. So I can understand why there is so much hatred in some communities where sometimes hatred is even taught to the children. So I feel that if people are using that hatred, I can understand where they come from. Still, we should not accept it. It's really, yeah, all religious groups and non-religious groups should be peaceful and respectful to each other. So that should be that's a foundation for civilization, I guess. So, but I can understand why people are growing up very different with very different views. So I'm not really too easily shocked or angry about those people, but because I know they've been teaching the children from 4 years old in some countries that they should kill Jews or Christians. It's bad, but I know that humans in itself can be very good. Even if you teach them the wrong things, they can end up doing the wrong things. So yeah, so that's a bit of psychology, and yeah, in a sense, psychology is very, very important. But I think your philosophical or religious views are even a level higher in importance. So I think that you should love your neighbor as yourself. I've learned that from young, and I think that's foundational for civilization and for living together with different kind of people. But that's my belief, and I hope more people have that because the world should look much more peaceful. So in that thing, yeah, the Old Testament, the Torah, is for me very important, but not in telling other people are wrong or bad. Their behavior can be, but the people in itself, I don't see. Yeah, they can
There's
be
a
good.
lot to do. Huh? There's a lot to do. And let me go to the birth of history Israel.
Yeah.
What inspired you to create the Jewish and Christian History of Israel website? Was kind of something? It was like, shall I need to do something else?
Uh, yeah, well, I was already on social media speaking up for the Jewish community, and so. But when I started to end up in discussions with other people, I noticed it's important to learn history very well before I end up in historical discussions. So it became first my personal quest to really understand what was happening. And one of the things what struck me, there are a lot of websites, there are a lot of books, but many describe either the biblical history of Israel until the Romans or the Byzantines. Some describe the late Ottoman period, the mandate of British mandate of Palestine, and the modern state of Israel. But in between, there are not so many books. The medieval period or the Arabic period after the Byzantines, there's not so much to find.
Yeah.
There are very good books, but they're more academic, more difficult to read for people who want to learn easy and quick about history. And there are hardly any books who describe the timeline from the first time archaeology found the name of Israel in the land of Israel or on inscriptions in Egypt until 1947. And that in that period you also have a lot of books who describe a part but not the whole period. So I started to ask myself the questions: is there a continuous life of the Jews in the land of Israel? And if so, I must be able to prove it, actually, because I know in the Jewish community that that idea is very strong, but I couldn't find it easily on the internet. So I thought I want to do research and find it out. So that was one of my main ideas and goals with the website. So I have 9 chapters describing every period from the Kingdom of David until the Romans, the Arab conquest of the Holy Land, the Crusaders, the Mamelukes, the Ottomans, the British. And I especially ended at 1947 because I wanted to show people there is a lot of Jewish history before even the modern state of Israel existed. So to counter that fake news, some people say, well, that they invaded the country, they're colonizers. And I couldn't believe that myself. And I said I wanted to prove it more easily understandable for a lot of people instead of you have to do a lot of academic studies to know it.
What kind of misinformation did you encounter, and how did it affect your motivation to, I need to go deeper, deeper? Because I may think that there was some fake news and misconnection from one point to the other point, but then I can see your website. I mean, it's amazing, and the way you have built all this, kind of information, putting all these dots together. What kind of a motivation do you have on doing all these connections?
Well, first of all, I always liked history the most when there is a sort of question. When I want to find out, I have to research things. I want to discover. So I really enjoy reading. If I have a question, if I want to look for something, if there's something that I already know, and then for me is not so interested anymore. But there's a lot of misconceptions, like the Jewish people are colonizers. Well, that's you hear so often on the streets, and it's totally ridiculous. It's truly opposite of the historic and archaeological facts that you can encounter if you start researching. But also the idea is that the Palestinians are the same as the Philistines, which is also ridiculous, not true. Some people also said that Hebrew as a language disappeared in the land of Israel. That was the idea, that it only was reinvented during the Ottoman British periods. So I wanted to look into that question: is that true or not? And it's totally ridiculous too. Although you had different languages in the land, that they use Greek, Arabic, Aramaic, all kind of languages. Hebrew consistently existed, especially in the synagogues or in more legal documents, and in such a way that people must be able to speak it and read it. So it's still a living language. It's not like Latin it's a dead language. So it was still spoken on certain occasions, on weddings or more important religious festivals. It was in prayers. And it's really amazing. If you start looking, then you can start like the Dead Sea Scrolls, and you find in every century there are Hebrew writings in the land of Israel. And I started with a timeline, the oldest, the Silver Scrolls, 700 years before Christ, and then 1947. So I had a timeline, and I started filling up what was there. Some are easily to find, like the Dead Sea Scrolls. And I started looking, and it started filling up. So I found a Hebrew writing of the 13th century. Wow, during the Middle Ages. It's still there. And you can find more and more and more and more, and it's really amazing. And I think one of the few cultures in human history, the Jews have a record of 2,700 years of Hebrew writings. And I think maybe only Iran or India can match up, but hardly any country can. Even the Egyptian, they have the hieroglyphs, but they disappeared out of life. And it changed to Greek and later Arabic. But Hebrew was still, although the language developed, different kind of Hebrew, a large part remained the same, and that's really amazing. If you so it's really also really fascinating to find. Oh, I have a new one in 1600. There's a rabbi going to Safat or Jerusalem, and he left an important writing. Yeah. So it's joy to do.
It's amazing that if you are able to go and watch the scrolls from
Yeah.
the Dead Sea. It's the same Hebrew that you can find whatever in Israel or in a synagogue. Same. I
Yeah.
mean, you can read as it was maybe thousands of years ago. So yeah, it's amazing, and that's very important. How is the response from readers or followers, which the ones are looking at your website? You can also talk about some positive and some negative, but let's speak about this one.
Um, well, positive. There are a lot of positive reactions, and also I received some negative. Sometimes my writing is not as good as I would like to do, so I had a lot of typos in it or wrong questions. And a Jewish man from Canada, helped me to change. So we were on Zoom, and so I went through the website, and then he changed my text to correct it and improve it. So it was really helpful. Really thankful, Stephen Fefer from Canada, and he helped me rewrite it and get a lot of typos out of the 9 chapters of history. And in the last part, I used ChatGPT to improve it. So it's really nice to have AI too. So in the 9 chapters, it has improved, but sometimes you can find typos, and I'm sure you can find them. And if anyone sees it, write it to me, and I will change it directly. But sometimes I don't see it myself anymore. So that's one of the difficult things, and also because it has become huge. I started with a small website. And if I would print it, it would be like 500 pages or something. It would be a lot.
There's a lot of information. Yeah, you're right. There's a lot of information. I mean, it's amazing.
So maybe in the
All
future there are some.
excuse me, all the little graphics that you make there. I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah. Also because I did some quest in my quest. So I started how many synagogues were built before the modern state of Israel. So I started with that question and made 1 chapter, and then you begin with 10, 20 synagogues, and now I'm at 230, which is really amazing to have one site where you can find them all, because there are some websites who describe only the ancient synagogues of the Golan who were ruined, and then you have some who describe some synagogues in Safat, but there's no website who has them all. So I wanted to fill in that gap too, and that's why it became huge. So there are positive and negative words. Also, one person told me, he was from Israel, he said, well, I believe in a connection between all religions, so why do you exclude the Muslim culture? I said, yeah, well, you're very right at that. Well, it was first my quest to look at Jewish and Christian background also, because there was a lot of violence in the past, and I wanted also to show that they have so much in common. Why, if you have so much in common, do you use violence against each other? Yeah. Why do you use violence against other humans? But even if you have so much in common, it's even more difficult to understand. So, but because I got that feedback, I also added 1 chapter with all the ancient mosques, and in the writings or inscriptions, I also added Muslim writings, Arabic writings. So it evolved. You could also call it the Abrahamic history of Israel, but I have most focused on the Jewish history, second on the Christian, and third on the rest, because I can't do all. So it's also a matter of time and choices. Yeah.
Yeah, it's important to tell our people, our audience, where there are a lot of things that we need to talk about, but at this time, where they can find your website, please, because you have shown us a lot of information. Now people are asking, I need to go there. Where?
Israel History Points.info. It's really easy. So israelhistory.info, and then you can find it on the website. Yeah.
So you see, guys, it's so easy.
Yeah.
After watching this Coffee with Kavanah, you need to watch. You need to see over there. I mean, there's a lots of information, and Peter, he just put everything together, and it's so nice. Let me go to the continuity of Jewish presence in the land of Israel. Um, what are some of the most compelling pieces of evidence that people, often overlook?
Um, well, in general, I made timelines and I wanted to make them visual. So everything I found, I have a picture of or a video, or sometimes something which looks nearly the same, because I want to make it visual. Because I read a lot of academic history pieces and it's so much text. So I want to make it more visual, nice. So I have one chapter with inscriptions dating the oldest from 1300 BC until 1947. One writing, the oldest of the 700s before Christ until 1947. And metals and coins is also a chapter. Also, again, a timeline. You see the developments in the land of Israel through coins and metal objects. And they're really nice, interesting things. Like in writings and scrolls, there's one important book from Leiden University of Adriaan Reeland. People should know about it because it described the Holy Land in around 1700, and it described that the Jews and the Christians were the most important group of the land of Israel in 1700. People often think that after the Crusaders there were no Jews and they only came back when the late Ottoman period arrived or the British let them in. But it's totally ridiculous. In 1700, the Jews and the Christians were the most important groups in the land of Israel. And most mosques were abandoned, hardly, in not a good state. And in the 19th century, around 1940, the Jews already had a majority in the city of Jerusalem. And in 1960, it was a very strong majority, absolute majority. And that went on until the Jordanian army invaded
Yes.
Jerusalem. And people don't know that. They should know it. Because if they think, it's all about how many people live there, the most important, most dominant groups should get the land. Well, if so, then they should never claim Jerusalem again. Therefore, I wanted to show that the history is so diverse that if you want to use history, use all history. And if you don't want to use history, then don't start complaining about 1948 or a certain period,
Correct.
and then only focus on today. That's what I really.
Let me go to the other one because I agree with you. I mean, if you use, just pieces and you do not connect the whole history, I mean, there's no way that you can discuss about what has belonged to the Jewish community, what has belonged to Israel, and everything. And what do you think? It's so important to remind the world everywhere that Jewish history did not begin in 48 because there's a lot of fake news that Israel began in 48, and that's not true.
One of the most important things is also in the Jewish religion, the land of Israel was always holy. And even when Jews were expelled to different parts of the Mediterranean, the Middle East, or Europe, there was always the tendency to go back to the Holy Land. And even many rabbis described the Holy Land as the best place to practice your Jewish faith. So most commandments in the Torah are written to use them in the land of Israel, not outside. So they're important outside as a preparation for the return. And that was a religious kind of wanting to return to Jerusalem, to Israel, religious Zionism. And that existed ever since the Babylonian captivity, 2,500 years. It's a continuous movement to go back to the Holy Land, but often it was not possible. So that the modern state of Israel exists since 1948, it could have happened 1,000 years earlier or 500 years earlier. There was always the tendency to go back, but only when nationalism came and new states started to exist, when the Ottoman Empire fell apart, there was an opportunity to create a national state. But the Jewish movement to go back to the Holy Land is everlasting, is ever since it was written in the Bible. And they were always, Jewish migration was nearly always obstructed or made impossible or difficult because of economic situations. But if they would have given a free pass since the Babylonian captivity, that was the time that they were able to return. But ever since, there were, it was difficult to migrate back to the land of Israel. Otherwise, the Jewish majority would have been there much earlier. Yeah, so people think that there was a peaceful period. The Muslim, Arab, or Ottoman empires were really kind and generous for the Jews. Well, partly it's true. When the Inquisition in Spain and Portugal was really threatening hundreds of thousands of Jews, they were allowed partly to go to the Ottoman Empire. That was really, really generous, really good. And the revival of Tiberias was also with a lot of support from Ottoman rulers. So there were good times, yes. Happy, there were good times. There were many good times. But in general, the Jewish migration was always difficult because of religious means to keep Jews out of Jerusalem. And so the state of Israel could have been recreated much earlier, centuries earlier.
Correct.
Yeah,
you're right.
Yeah.
Let me go to bridges. And when I'm talking about bridges, how do you think Christians and Jews are able to build a bridge between the communities? And what do you think is the role of Christian communities can play in, fighting or countering antisemitism and supporting Israel?
Yes, well, I have a Christian background, although I don't really. It's sometimes hard for me to call me like that. For me, the Old Testament is holy, and the New Testament is revolutionary, but based on the Old Testament. And both are, for me, foundations for advocating for human rights, actually. People don't see it often like that, but I see it as the start of the movement for advocating human rights. And I feel that the Old Testament is also holy for me. But I think Jews and Christians could support each other much more from their common grounds, and they should respect the differences, not trying to convert each other or anything like it. But they can be more like a brother and a sister. They're both different, but they have a common ground. So I would love to see it in that way, but it's difficult to discuss who's the brother and who's the sister. But that's. But the way of being different and also having common ground, that would attract me. And also because from a Christian perspective, you should always try to help the one who is in danger or in need. And I think the Jewish community has been so often in despair, in need, in danger, that it's really very un-Christian to be anti-Semitic and not helping out like the Jews. Also other groups like the Druze in Syria or other groups, every religious violence or every violence against people or a group you should oppose as a Christian, I think. And I think as a Jew, that's the same. And I think the Jewish community is really good in respecting the differences of other religions, much better than the Christians ever were. So we can learn from that, and we should learn from that, but we could also support each other. Yeah. That's
Good. Let me go.
yeah.
And I think that we do have hope. We do have a legacy, and you're building both. You're building this legacy. Uh, what keeps you going? When, excuse me. When it feels overwhelming because of today's action around the world and against the Jews.
Well, first for me, I have no choice because my best friend and family is Jewish. So there's no, I think there's no choice. I would stand up for every good friends or family in need. So that stands out. It's difficult not to become hardened or more negative in this atmosphere when there's so much negativity. And I try to still see also people with whom I disagree as beautiful people, which is sometimes difficult, but I really focus on that those people can be beautiful, but some behavior can be horrible. So that's also what in psychology you learn when you teach children. You don't want to be negative at the person, but maybe you have to be strict about their behavior. You have to set boundaries for it, but you will never say as a child you're horrible. But you can say, well, your behavior is not okay, you should learn this. I'm here to help you. So I think we should also deal with people who disagree with you in the same way. Yeah, always we should try to support peace and coexistence. I think that is really vital in living together as communities. Yeah, I
You,
think that.
as a
Yeah.
psychologist, looking ahead, what do you hope your work will inspire in younger generations?
Um, well, if I just look at my website, I hope they find a place where they can find it easily without all the time I had to find out. Because I studied in looking at history, I think it cost me like thousands of hours, because I went through the website of the Louvre, the British Museum, all kind of books, references of books, websites. Jewish museums in New York or Cyprus, or so I try to look at all those things. So it costs a lot of time, and I hope they can find it more easily and see how much beautiful history there is. Hopefully, it inspires them to question themselves and their own ideas and start doing research and be critical about their own ideas. But especially, I hope that people will always support each other and help out for the people who are in need or in danger, and learn the differences between people, that you should respect them, but you can still be friends and you can be different. Because I never met a person who thinks the same like I do, and I think that's everybody in the world agrees on that. So why should we yeah, should we fight each other because of a different opinion? I think that's ridiculous. But yeah, it's sometimes difficult.
And if you could summarize your message to the world in one sentence, this is a
Oh,
kind
in
of
one sense, oh yes, yeah.
yeah. What would it be?
Uh, 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 well, so I'll try. I think supporting peace and coexistence is always vital. And if you want to focus on history, okay, then all history matters. And if you want to say leave history, that can be okay too. But then you have to leave all history. Yeah.
Well, sound, it sounds a very strong message, very strong message. Time is flying, and I would like to thank you, Peter, for your time. It has been great to discuss from your Christian point of view about everything. Also, I would I would like to congratulate you because of all the hard work and many hours that you have done in your research or reading and putting all this together, and especially on the website. Your website is amazing, and also all the posts that you are doing every kind of on a daily basis. In a world filled with noise like today, Peter has chosen the dialogue, and this is the important thing, to find the dialogue between the difference, because we all have different views, but you have chosen the dialogue, and this is the important thing. And we need to inspire your work, all the things you're doing, to listen more deeply, to learn with honesty, and to stand with truth and compassion. And this is the important message from this podcast. Until now, a next coffee, and especially with Kavanah, with intention. Thank you very much, Peter, for being here in a coffee with Kavanah. And remember, you need to subscribe. We're reaching a good number. We are, I mean, and we are going from India today, Netherlands, maybe tomorrow in Israel, and we are, covering all the world and talking about different topics that matters everybody. So thank you very much, and bye bye now.